Public Library. My name is Carla and I'm a librarian assistant here. And I'm here to introduce you and give you some tips and some fun ideas on autumn container gardening. So I've got a variety of containers that I'm going to show you and talk you through and surprise you at the very end with a little surprise of a different kind of container that you might not know about. So I'm excited to introduce all of that to you. We're going to give everyone a little bit of time to kind of catch up and join in. So yeah, Wesley's off the camera.
Hi everybody.
So we've got a variety of things. I've got several different plants. Some things have already been planted and potted in containers. And I will also walk you through a few containers as well and put them together for you. And we've got some holiday ideas as well on how to spruce up your doorstep using the same containers that you can use from now and through November. So,
awesome, sounds good.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
Got a lot of stuff, I can't wait to get through them.
I know, we do a lot of stuff. It's a lot of work bringing all this stuff up in here into the library, but I love to garden. It is a hobby of mine. I've done it for a very long time, and I learn as I go, and that's the great thing about gardening. It's trial and error. You just have to want to do it and have a desire to learn something new. And we do offer a lot of books on gardening here at the library, so I encourage you to take a look at that whole aisle.
Huge garden section.
Yeah. Huge, and we're constantly getting new books. So trying to find the room to squeeze all of those books back into that bookshelf. But yeah, and I can help you. If you come up here, I can help you try and find a book by a specific author or a famous person or a famous gardener and their book. And if we don't have it, we can get it for you possibly. So you gotta look into that too. Do we have some people?
We do. I think it's a good time to start.
Okay, fantastic. So the great thing about container gardening is that it's really versatile. So depending on your patio space or your front porch or your front door area, it doesn't have to be your front door. It can just be anything. A small little patio space that you're wanting to bring a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of just something pretty to look at while you're outside having your coffee and, on your doorstep or in your patio. But the one thing that I love about container gardening too is the seasonal changes that it can bring. So because plants, there are seasonal plants, so there's annuals. Annuals are, you have to plant them annually. They end up dying and depending on what zone you're in. We are in zone 8. So we're extremely hot, and we do get zone 7 plants as well, and they tend to do pretty well too, but it just depends. But annuals, you have to, like pansies, that's not something that will live throughout the year here. They will eventually die as the season changes. So perennials are my favorite. Perennials are something that continue to come back year after year, depending how well you take care of them while they're in your containers. So let's get started. So there are different types of containers that you can use. There is wood. I don't have an example of wood with me because they are so heavy. We do have a lot of them in my personal yard that my brother put together, and they're fairly easy to create, and you don't need a whole lot of woodworking skills in order to put some boards together and some nails and create something. You can purchase them at any gardening store, of course, pre-made for you. Of course, they're kind of expensive. If you do get a wood container, you want to make sure that you stain it. If you're not going to stain it, then you can use a linseed oil, and you would do that every year because the wood dries out with the sun exposure and the water. It just tends to rot out the wood and dry it out. So you want to keep it nice and shiny. You can always paint it as well. So another container that is really versatile and is often used are terracotta clay pots. So I have some examples over here of some terracotta pots. And these are fairly inexpensive. okay, when it comes to planters itself. But it can add up. And I don't want you to think that terracotta lasts forever, because it doesn't. It does break down in time, especially in the winter. Because if you need to, the first thing you need to do is kind of winterize your terracotta if you intend on spending a lot of money on one, because the bigger they get, the more expensive they are. So you want to really protect it and get your money's worth and the length of time that you invested in it. But these are not very expensive. So we're looking at something that's about $7, probably about $5.50, $6.50, and these are on the lower end. And as you notice, they also come with saucers. You have to buy the saucers separately. I don't buy the saucers because I want them to drain. Of course, it depends on what kind of plant you put in there, on whether or not you want to have a saucer underneath it. It also depends if it's going to be in your home. Of course you want the saucer because you don't want the water running all over your carpet or hardwood floor or anything like that. But so the terracotta, you can, before you start planting in it, you want to condition it somehow. So there is what's called a spray and seal. It is a pottery sealer. So you're going to spray it on there inside and the outside. You're going to allow it to dry. When it's dry, then it's sealed and ready to go. Terracotta, once you add your potting mix to it, tends to absorb water. Terracotta is great because it kind of retains the moisture, although it dries out your dirt. So it absorbs all the moisture from that dirt into the clay pot itself. So one tip is, before you even begin planting, and even after you've probably done the sealer, if you don't want to do the sealer, you don't have to. You can skip that step. It's not necessary. But you can dunk your pottery in water and then take it out. So it's already got moisture in it. So when you add the potting soil, it's not going to absorb just the soil from the water from the soil. So we've got that.
Is it just cold water, Carla?
What?
Just cold water?
Yeah, just cold water. Yeah. I've got this big bin right here. You could probably add water in it, and then just dunk it, and you'll be done. Okay, it's very important, regardless of which pot you use, you have to have drainage. So in clay pots, they already have a hole provided for you. As you can see, I've got some gravel that's going through the hole. To add for extra drainage, you do need to add some sort of pea gravel, broken clay pots, anything like that adds extra drainage from the bottom of your pot. Is it coming out?
Casualty of war.
That's part of gardening. So there's that. Once you have your drainage material on the bottom, and drainage materials can vary. You can use styrofoam peanuts. You can use pea gravel. They also have these like terracotta clay balls that absorb moisture, and they're lightweight. They can be kind of expensive though, so if you're filling half of your pot with the drainage stuff, then it kind of can get expensive. So it just depends on how much you're wanting to spend. So I'm just using pea gravel and some rocks and then some broken terracotta pots on the bottom of that for drainage. You're going to add a bit of potting soil. I'm just going to use my hands. Okay, the one thing you want to do when you're adding your plant, you see how much of this pot is in there, how big it is. Of course, you want to make sure you get the right size pot for as big a plant you have. So you can't put this size pot in something like this plant in this pot because it's not deep enough for it. So make sure you're aware of that. So when you take that out, and by the way, keep these, I'll tell you why here in a minute. And you want to loosen the bottom of the roots because it's been stuck in that plastic pot for a while, so it needs those roots to breathe. You're going to set it down in there. And then you're going to add more dirt around the plant. This plant right here is a coneflower. They are a perennial, so they come back every year. I love this color. I saw it at, where did I find this one? I think I found it at Home Depot. And I was just in love with the color. I love the color orange and any fall colors, and I thought, well, autumn container gardening, this is a beautiful color. So, you fill that. And as you can see with this specific type leaf on this plant, there isn't much room. If it were a bigger pot, I would, so if it was a little bit wider, I would probably add mulch on the top or pea gravel, just to give it some extra flair, just to look pretty on the top. But the leaves are so big that are draping over on the sides, I'm just gonna leave it alone.
Are you packing it in there, or are you keeping it kind of loose?
I am packing it in there.
Okay.
And that's a good thing to mention, because after you start watering your plants, it starts to pack down that dirt more and more and more. One thing you can do is take a piece of terracotta, there, and a bigger piece, you lay it in there, and when you water your plant, you hit that terracotta, and it'll go in there and not compound the dirt so much in the bottom, on the top of that pot for you. So there's that. So this is a little trio setup that I thought would look really pretty. This is a chocolate stone crop. Got this on clearance at Lowe's. They have clearance plants, believe it or not. Home Depot does not. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm always searching at the very back of Lowe's because they always have this cart. And I'm always wondering what's going to be back there because they're trying to clear out some plants because as the seasons change, they start discounting things. I'm always looking for perennials because even though they look so deathly and ill, I always feel like I can save them and somehow zhuzh them up again. And that's what happened when I found these. The chocolate stone crop is a perennial. It is a succulent, but it's one that is pretty hardy. So I planted in this, and I did put mulch on the top, as you can see, to make it look a little bit prettier around the edges. And this is a rosemary plant that was on that clearance bin I got for $3, and it'll get bigger and prettier, and I might trim it, and you can also use it on your chicken. So that's always fun too. So there's terracotta. And the one thing that I wanted to show an example of what terracotta does eventually as it erodes, but don't throw it away. You can use it for drainage. So you'll just crack this off and then continue to use it. I think this was my brother's. And yeah.
It's pretty though.
Yeah, it is. You can still use it. So, so there's clay pots. Another way of for clay pots is a lot of times these terracotta pots are not glazed. You can get clay pots that are glazed, so they're glazed and shiny on the outside. The inside sometimes is not. They haven't coated them or anything like that. So it's important that you realize that even those don't winterize very well because you've got to do it. Got to do something. If you're spending $50 or $60 on those beautiful terracotta that are glazed on the outside, you have to line them with plastic on the inside or something, of course, punch holes in that plastic because you want it to drain properly. But that'll protect the terracotta because water will get in between the glaze and the pot and make it crack and bubble, and then you're not going to like it very much. So you'll be like, but I spent $50 on that. And so.
You have a question, Carla, if you want to
Okay.
take some second. Gail asked, if I wanted to plant several herbs, do they have different sun or water requirements, or can I plant them in the same pot?
They all have practically the same sun requirements, but I have found that the heat here is just so hot. So even though they might say full sun, part sun, even if they say full sun, because we're in zone 8, it is just so hot. So I always have basil. You can plant basil and rosemary. Rosemary is way more hardy. It's like a tree. It's a bush, really. kind of thing. And so then you have the more delicate things like dillweed and thyme. And thyme is kind of woody as well. So I would put the woodier ones like rosemary and oregano and thyme together. You could do that in a bigger pot, but be aware that rosemary gets really big. It can get really bushy. So I would stay away from that. But thyme and oregano, absolutely. Basil would be fine with that as well. Although the basil is only an annual, it's a seasonal. So the oregano and the thyme are perennials. Rosemary is a perennial. So those more delicate ones like the dill and the parsley and things like that. Parsley should come back, but sometimes it doesn't make it. It's just in our zone. So, but even though it says full sun, I always say part sun. If you can find a shady area all day in the sun, we'll always kill it, especially if you forget to water. It's not a good thing. Does that help?
Research your herbs.
Yeah, research your herbs. And we have books on those.
Yes.
Okay, so moving on, we're going to go into a synthetic pot. So drainage is very important. A lot of the synthetic pots, just be aware, they actually have these pre-cut holes, but you have to use a hammer and, I'm going to show you, and a screwdriver to punch them out. But if they don't have these, sometimes they have the actual saucer connected to it and you can pop those off. So be aware of that. Just because it has a saucer, it may not actually be permanently attached. Ceramic ones, a lot of the times, are permanently attached. So, but that's the only ones that I pretty much have seen. So I'm going to take a hammer and a screwdriver. I did the first one, and I'm going to do this one. So just like that. Okay, so this container obviously is much larger, and the most expensive part is the potting soil. So you'll get a big bag of potting mix and spend probably about $17, depending on which potting mix you get. This is a Miracle-Gro potting mix. I do like the Miracle-Gro because I like the nutrients and the food that it has that's in it, but you don't have to. You can always add that later in a liquid fertilizer or some sort. So if they're having a sale on the cheapest, get that. You just need the soil in there. But you don't want to fill the entire container with the potting mix because it makes it really heavy. So, and drainage is very important. So what you can do is this. All of these plastic things, you can cut up on the sides. I have an example. This one. This one doesn't really fit. This one's a little bit better. So you would notch it on the sides, like so, and put it in there, and then you would add your gravel around it. So it's going to sit in there like this. Add the gravel around it, and then you can add the dirt on top. So you're kind of cheating a little bit. And then the drainage, there's still holes in the bottom of this, so the water's still going to be able to go through and drain properly. So you can reuse these plastic things, or styrofoam, or cardboard, anything on the bottom of that to lessen the load once you add the potting soil, because it gets really heavy. Now, I found this today, and I didn't know they made these. It's called an Upsy Daisy. And the great thing about this is that it fits. They come in different sizes. I found this one at Lowe's. I'm sure Home Depot has it too. Sits right in there. It's like a false bottom for your pot. And it has drainage holes in it. So we're going to plant beginning there. So we don't have to add so much soil. So what we're going to do, I have pea gravel. I'm going to shake some of it. A bag of pea gravel is super cheap, by the way. Just a little bit, not a whole lot. I'll do one more handful. Then I'm going to go with the soil. And I am just going to going to talk about the planting. The plants, actually putting them in your container. There's different ideas of what you're looking at. What's the shape that you're trying to create? What's the feeling? What's the sense? Do you want it to smell good, or do you want it to look a certain way? I love grasses, so I was drawn to this one, and it is, I don't know what the name of it is. What's the name of it? Fox red curly sedge. I don't know.
Sedge.
Sedge, yeah, a sedge.
Maybe it's a form of sage. We just
I
don't know.
know, a sedge. But I liked it because how tall it is,
Right.
too. So if you're looking, you really want something dramatic, something feathery and light, and then bring in some smaller plants around it. Also look at the colors. You really want to look at colors per se. Is your patio, are you trying to decorate your patio, or are you trying to decorate for the holiday, or whatever makes you happy? I mean, it's whatever. It doesn't really matter. So, but I really like height. So I'm going to place this one. You can put it in the center and then smaller plants around it, but I know where I want this, and I want it
In your face.
not in my face, but I want it up against a corner.
Yes.
So I'm going to put it towards the back. So there's that. And these other ones, these are sweet potato vine. I got these on clearance too. And because we're in zone 8, they actually last a lot longer than they should. So, and they bring some interesting color. They do come in different colors, I think like a plain green, but I loved this because when they do grow, you get the green and then it turns into this purple, and I think it's really beautiful. But it is a vine, and it trails on out, and I just love the idea of that. And then I bought a small garden mum. This one's yellow. I wanted a pop of color in this container. Take it out of there. Wiggle those roots so they can breathe. And put that in there. See how low it's sinking in there? But I know that it's gonna get bigger. Mums tend to get taller and then they get bushier. So I'm giving it some room to actually grow. The potato vines can sit right on top of each other. They're gonna be fine. Same thing. See how overgrown it is? It was ready to come out of that little pot. Grab it from, be careful when you grab them, you don't wanna pull too hard. So there's that. And then, I got these for $1, these stone crop. Alrighty. So then you add more dirt. Wow. Had no idea this grass was gonna be so challenging to plant around. So the synthetic containers are really great. They do cost a lot, depending, and you know, if you want a big container or one big container, the investment can be about $25, but you have it every year. And if it gives you that first start of container gardening, you should do it. And then keep adding on every year, you know,
Take a
and
look
get
at,
a new pot.
take a look at the inside of the pot. It's going to be a little shaky, but
Yeah. And I'm pushing that dirt around on the inside. And I'm trying to give it some room because all of these are going to expand and get a little bit bigger. And remember, we're looking at autumn. So September, October, and November, all of this is going to get bigger. Except for the sweet potato vine, it's just going to get longer. And you can always trim it back.
and so now would be like a good time to make a pot like this, so that way it does grow into like
Right,
you said.
exactly. And that's the one thing you do want to think about for your containers, that, you know, the size. So you can plant this in a small pot, but know that it's going to get root bound. The mom wants more room. So that's the one thing about containers, is that the plants outgrow their containers sometimes. And so you need to buy a bigger pot for it. Or if it's an annual, just throw it away and get a different one and use the same one. But
while we've got a close-up, Mary has a question. Can you go over the plants one more time and what are their names real quick?
yeah, this is what was it?
Sedge.
A sedge, a red.
Fox something.
Fox red curly sedge. Fox red curly sedge. I don't know if you can see that. And I found that one at Lowe's. This one was not on sale, but I just thought it was beautiful. I love the color of it. I love the texture of it. It just brings some really neat interest to the pot. This is just a regular chrysanthemum in yellow, and this is a stone crop, but it is a chocolate. They call it chocolate just because of the color, but it is a stone crop, part of the succulent family. And this is a sweet potato vine.
Awesome.
Yeah. And there's that. So that's the synthetic container. All of these away.
Yeah, my mom hates when I garden because I just throw everything about. I'm never organized.
Well, it is messy, but it's fun. It's fun to get dirty and messy, and but yeah.
And Gail noticed your t-shirt and how appropriate it is. She likes it.
Thank you. It's one of my favorites.
We do have a question from Gail too, but we'll save that one for the end.
Okay.
So you can get the containers all set. So.
Okay, so there's that, and then I can always add, just like I did over here with these, some mulch. And I did bring some wood mulch, and I can add wood mulch to it to make it look really pretty. You can also use pea gravel if you just want to put pea gravel up on the top. It just gives it a little bit more interest, a little bit more finished look.
Kind of woodsy.
Yeah. So there's that.
Nice.
So that's synthetic. So another container that you can use are stone containers. They are extremely heavy. I don't have an example because of that. Stone containers are great if you have a very large yard or a focal point. I always tend to think of stone containers that are really cool around a pool area or something like that. The great thing about stone containers is that if you know where you want to locate it and not ever move it and then just switch out the plants, then that's great. They patina over time. So if you want to speed up that patina, you can take grass and rub the outside of the stone, and it will treat it, and it'll start to become algae. You know, that green, rusty kind of look. Lichen can grow on it, and it becomes more of the outdoors kind of thing. So stone is really pretty, is super expensive, and it's very heavy. So I don't have an example for you today for that. Another one is metal. So you can use galvanized metal. Look around. When you go shopping, even at the dollar store, if you can get a galvanized or a metal bin or a metal tub of some sort, even smaller ones, you can drill holes using a metal drill bit and drill holes. Drainage is very, very important. So I have an example of one that's here. This is my brother's. He did drill holes in the bottom, so you can see, and added dirt and some gravel in the bottom, and he just planted ivy in it. And this is a lantana. Lantana is an annual. Both of these are annuals. Perennials. So lantana comes back every year. So there's that. The one thing that I do want to point out about metal is that the drainage holes rust. So once you prep your container, you want to make sure that you use some sort of anti-rust. That's if you're wanting your container to last a long time. Because once it starts to rust, it wears down that metal and it creates a bigger hole, and then the whole thing will rot out and then you won't have a container. But if you want it, a lot of times I like these old wash bins or things like that that you can find at garage sales or estate sales or anything like that. I always go shopping and think of, can I plant something in that? I always do, because I love to plant. But yeah, you can paint metal, just use an anti-rust paint. But you do want to protect those drainage holes. That's very important because the water will break down over time.
You said there's a spray for that?
Huh?
Is there a spray for that, you said? Or
No, just an anti-rust, sealant of some sort. It can just be paint as well.
Gotcha.
If you want to spray paint it red and have a red metal container, that's perfectly fine too. So there's that. We did terracotta, synthetic, we talked about stone, metal,
wood,
and wood. So we went through all the containers. Drainage is very important. And I have a surprise container. So over here, is this in the shot or should I roll it? I don't know. So this is a surprise to everybody, and it was to me too. When I moved back here and my sister was beginning gardening, she decided to switch up her gardening style and use hay bales. So we use hay bales for our veggies. And I decided that, well, if I could put a hay bale on a dolly, it would be a really cool container for a front doorstep or patio, especially if you have the space for something this large. They also make hay bales, I think, half this size, but they're like in a big canvas bag or something like that, but they're like half this size. Okay. The hay bales you can purchase at the Tractor Supply store. The one thing that I do love about the hay bale idea is the fact that it decomposes. It's a really earth-friendly way of gardening. You're giving back to the soil after it decomposes, and you're paying just about as much money as anything else, if not less. So a hay bale is $10, roughly, and if you know a farmer who can give you a hay bale, then you've got it for free. But $10 is just, it's actually maybe $2 more than that terracotta pot. So, and you can plant more things in it. So it's up to you, but it's interesting and it's fun, and it's been around for a very, very long time. The one thing about hay bales that you need to understand, though, before you begin this process is the conditioning. And it takes approximately about 2 weeks to condition your hay bale. So I spent $10 at the Tractor Supply store. I bought a dolly over at Harbor Freight for $15. I did not know that they had coupons. Otherwise, I would have used one and it would have been like $10. So I also put, my brother helped me, put a couple of just wood slats that he cut up to hold the weight of the hay bale, because as you water it, it becomes very heavy. So you really do want to put it on wheels if you can to get it out of the way if you need to. Typically, the hay bale comes with twine around it. It did have blue twine around it. My brother helped me, and he put some galvanized wire around it for me, so it's not so blue, I guess, but it doesn't matter. It didn't really bother me, but as it decomposes, the steel will help contain it better than the twine, and the twine does not decompose. That stays in the earth forever, so if that's a concern. When you use your hay bale, you want to make sure that is cut side up. So the cut side meaning that you can move it around like a book kind of thing. As it decomposes, it's a little easier to move. So the conditioning process takes about 2 weeks. What you have to do is make sure it's wet. You wet it, soak it completely with water. Then you're going to alternate with fertilizer. I use blood meal. And full disclosure, this is not a finished conditioned hay bale. I'm only beginning the process, but I wanted to introduce you a new idea of container gardening. And I thought, how festive, how fun for autumn to have a hay bale. So you would sprinkle some blood meal through it, and by the way, we do have 2 straw bale gardening books in our library that you can check out. Once you condition it, so you're going to use the fertilizer and water alternating days for the 2 weeks. You're constantly going to check the temperature inside. Hay bales are extremely hot. And in fact, I couldn't put these plants in here, rightfully so, because it's so hot it would have cooked the roots to my plants, and I would have been very sad, and then they would have died. So I loosely put them in plastic just to show you, but when this is conditioned, the plants you put in a little bit of dirt in through here, and then you're going to plant your plants, and then you're going to add some more dirt right up on top, just like the container. It's the same idea. And I used a mum. This is fountain grass, a red button fountain grass that I got on clearance at Lowe's for like $5. I love this little cattail on the top. It's really pretty. It brings interest. Grass it's gonna get tall. It's really pretty. This is gonna get bushy, and this is gonna trail over some more.
Why don't you show them one more time? Take it out and put it
Sure.
back in.
So this is the mum, and I'm protecting the roots because I don't want it to get so hot. But you're gonna take your trowel, or this little 3-hook thing, and you're gonna dig up the hay to get it out. Then you're gonna add dirt. Now, if it's a fully conditioned and dry hay bale, it isn't gonna be as hard as this is.
Gotcha.
But because it's super wet, it really is right now. And then you're gonna put it in there. And you can do this with veggies, herbs, anything. And then you're gonna add more dirt right up on top, just like we did in a pot, right up on the top. And then you're gonna water it, feed it, just like any other plant. It's important to note that if you do this process, condition your bale away from the house. Because the temperatures in hay bales are really hot, really high. And when you're adding nitrogen to it, you're adding the fertilizer to it, technically it could combust if it gets really, really hot in there, because it is. You can feel the heat steaming when I opened up. You can come feel it, Wesley.
Ooh, it is warm.
It's really, really warm. So what you're wanting to do is, the more wet you get, you have to keep it wet every day. Fertilize it every day. Wet it. Continue to wet it. And then it starts to break down. And it breaks down into all of the good nutrients that you need for gardening. And it keeps your plants healthy and continues to feed it as it breaks down all that nitrogen. But you want the internal temperature to be like 75 degrees, because right now it's about 124 degrees. So you would take your thermometer, I don't know where we got this, but you would have to take the temperature of your hay bale and make sure it's at the right the temperature. And once it's there, then you can plant your plants, and then you can get going with all of that. And as it decomposes, then you can roll it on back and put it in a different area. You can use the hay for something else and give it back to the earth. So it's a great thing about this. So
Just to reiterate, what's like a good lifeline or timeline to keep this alive, the bale hay? Like how long will it last?
So it'll last a few months. I mean, it'll continue to break down, and you'll see it. You'll see it like start to fall over a little bit or things like that, but it will continue to get shorter and shorter and shorter. Okay. That's what I've noticed in the veggie garden. So we have more hay bales that I need to condition and get together and put our vegetables in. But for a front doorstep, it'll be a lot of fun just for a few months, and you can roll it on the back and put it on your patio and
cool.
use it in a different way. So once you have all of your container planted and stuff for autumn, think about ways that you can bring in any kind of holiday and how fun it would be. So I have brought in some things to give you some ideas.
Gild the lily, as they say.
What's that?
Gild the lily, as they say.
So we're going to start with the hay bale since we're already there. So for September, or October, or November, it's up to you. But I found this, and I thought it was super cute. It is wood, so this is going to be underneath. It's going to be by our front door, but we have a roof over it, so I'm not worried about this getting wet. But be aware if you're putting your hay bale in an exposed and you're trying to find picks and stuff, make sure it's either metal or you're able to properly take care of it to where it doesn't get wet, because the wood will get damaged. So that's what I would do for autumn. And I would also put some indoor-outdoor lights, kind of drape them around. Oh, I started the wrong way. Make sure you're starting the right way with the electrical part on the opposite end. Okay. I always think lights are super fun and an easy way to bring interest to any area.
Good.
It's super cute. So there's that. And I found these lights, and these are it's a brown color, and then a little orange and yellow, and that would be a quick way to do that. And then for this area, for this trio, I have this. This was a shutter that I got at, what is it called?
A store.
It is a store. It's a Habitat for Humanity.
Yes.
They have a store over here on McCann.
The restore, yes.
Yes, a restore. So they take a lot of things from buildings and homes that have been updated and stuff, and they sell the parts. And so I found the shutter there, and I painted everything. And I actually used it for the succulent class that I taught, and tried to put succulents in it, and then that didn't work. So, but this is really cute and brings interest. And I have some indoor-outdoor lights, and then I've got this little trio. So this would be a really cute front doorstep thing as well. You can add a little pumpkin to it. So if you have a small little doorstep, this would be perfect for something like that.
An apartment, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for October, let's say we're going to switch this out, and we're going to make it scary. We're going to put this in there. And keeping all of that, and you can switch out the lights to purple lights or a strobe light or anything like that, and that would be fun too. For this trio down here, not trio, I don't know why I keep saying trio. I have this electric lantern. Turn it on here. So that's the light for it. Pumpkin. And that's a little fall, little vignette. These are little foam gourds. If you wanted to, for November, add those in there. Of course, The weather does tend to make that foamy stuff crackle, so it doesn't last forever, but it still brings some interest to it to be really super cute. But lights, accessories, and keep the same pot. If you want to make this more Halloween, I found these picks at Michael's. They're all on sale, 40% off if you want to go there. And I did use electrical tape on the end, so that way when you do water your plant, it doesn't destroy the
That's a good tip.
thing.
I never knew that. I didn't think of it.
And I used electrical tape on this one as well, on this stick. So depending what colors you want, and this can go over here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
So those are that. Anything else? Any questions? Anybody
We
else
do have some
questions?
questions from earlier. Good job on showing us the containers. You do have instructions per se, like little tips and hints
For the hay?
for all of it.
For all of it? I wrote out some stuff. Yeah, we can add that
Well,
too.
she might work on that. If we have a sheet available, we'll share it with y'all somehow, and you're welcome to come get it at the library.
Yeah.
But going back to earlier questions, let's see. So Gail bought an established cactus at an estate sale and brought it home. It did well for about 3 months. Then over a week, it seemed to turn to ooze, like it disintegrated from the inside. Any idea why? Could it have been a pest maybe or something?
Sounds like it was overwatered. When you bought it from the estate sale, where was it located? Was it inside or was it outside? So you really have to think about where it was before, because it may shock it if you're introducing it to a different environment. So if it's getting full sun and only had part sun before, then it's not used to that. So it does shock them. Succulents are so hard. They are.
Tip or mill?
Yeah, they are.
All
But
right.
that's what I think. If it oozed from the inside, that means it had root rot or it got overwatered.
She did say it was outside too.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah.
Mary asked an earlier question. She says, how can you keep mums looking pretty? Mine tend to brown.
Right? They do brown because they don't like to be watered from the top. So if you have a watering container, you want to make sure, watering can, I couldn't think of that word. You want to water from the bottom. If you start watering your mums from up here, it does cause everything to brown, and it doesn't like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see, we just had a question come in. Deanne asked, could you use duct tape instead of electrical tape, like when you're wrapping the picks?
Sure. I don't see why not. The only thing with duct tape though is they're big pieces. So I mean, you can if you want to roll that out. And duct tape is so sticky. It's so sticky. But yes, you can use it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So they're saying thank you now. I think we're done
You're
with the
welcome.
questions.
You're welcome. I had so much fun.
Thank you so much, Carla. I'm going to talk from over here, but September is coming up, and we do have a lot of programs coming up for everybody. We have our bookmark design contest that's going to be running all through September. We have a writer's workshop that you can sign up for and make an appointment for. Wow, I'm spacing on my job. This is terrible. There is a job search for success workshop that is on the 10th. Be sure to sign up for that. We have a form online you can see, and if you need job search help, Rachel and Josh are going to hold a Google Meet chat. So, and we have adult crafts next month. I should know that because I'm doing it.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a really cool drawing technique for everybody coming up to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And kids programs are returning, the online programs.
Yes.
Look for those.
We have a STEM thing.
Yes,
Yeah,
a STEM Saturday, STEM Saturday.
Yeah.
And that's a new program. And we will have the calendar out soon. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and Carla and I will try to get to those for you.
Yes, and I will have Wesley post in the feed of this pictures of my front doorstep with the hay bale and everything finished, so that way you can see what it looks like. I have a mulberry door, So the red door with the orange, and I just think it would
She's
be.
very excited.
I am. I love autumn.
All right, everybody. Thank you.